Hi again. I'm picking up, this is part 2 of our detailed description of the Arduino alarm system project. Now we've looked at the condition in which the system was not armed, and we checked the state of the arm button. Okay, and if the arm button was pressed, we blinked the LED, checked for reset, and we said we need to set armed as equal to true. Now the reason we did that is because after it executes this if statement, it's not going to do the else statement, right? It's going to end and loop back up to the beginning again, okay? So when it loops back up to the beginning again, remember, armed is now true. So not armed is false, okay? The system is not armed. It's true now, or it is armed now. And so in that case, when the Arduino sees that statement, it's going to skip over this stuff. It's not going to do this because armed is now true. It's going to execute all this stuff in the else statement. In other words, we need to now go check our motion sensor and move on in our flowchart. Okay, so let's do that. The system is armed is true, and so it hits that if statement, it skips over all that stuff and it moves to the else. Well, what it has to do is it has to, first of all, tell the user that the system is armed and dangerous. It's ready and waiting for motion. And so we're going to turn on the LED in a solid and keep it on. We're just going to turn it on and keep it on. We're not going to flash it or anything. So we just turn it on. Okay. The next thing we do is we have to go check for motion from our sensor. Okay. And so we read into a variable called motion state. Motion is, I think it was pin 2. We'll have to go back and check the diagram. But it's checking that pin that our motion sensor is tied to, and if that motion sensor is sent a signal of high, meaning it detected motion, then we got to do some stuff. Okay. First thing we need to do is we need to flash the status LED quickly. Okay, and so we're going to set up a loop, and we're going to loop it 50 times. In that loop is going to turn on and off the status LED. It's going to turn it on for 100 milliseconds and then turn it off for 100 milliseconds. And that is going to be a total of 200 milliseconds, or 1/5 of a second. And so when it does it 50 times 1/5 of a second duration per loop, per iteration, that's 10 seconds. All right, so it's going to flash quickly for 10 seconds. Now, while it's flashing, it's also, we need to check to see if somebody's pressed that reset button, okay? And so we, again, have to go off and check to see, go read the status of the reset button, and if it has been pressed, we want to restart the system, but if not, then just don't do anything, move on. There's no else or anything, just move on. Okay, so we're now done flashing the LEDs, and nobody has pressed the reset button. Okay, now I didn't close this if statement right here because it continues on to the next slide. Okay, let's continue on. So now, for 20 seconds, we're going to set off the alarm. We're going to flash the lights, the LEDs, and we're going to make the sounds. So I'm going to use J as a new index variable because I've already used I before. I'm going to try, I can just use it, I can call this anything I want. It's an integer J, and it's going to go from 1 to less than or equal to 20. It'll do this, increment by 1. And the first thing it's going to do is turn on my first light and turn off my second light. So I know they're both off to start with. Now these are my alarm lights, not the status LED. All right, these are the alarm LEDs. I'm calling them light 1 and 2, although we know that for you it's LED 1 and 2 for now. So I'm going to turn one of them on and keep the other one off. And I'm going to do that for 1/2 a second. So that's where this delay comes in. Okay. Now right here I'm sounding a 4th octave G for 1/2 a second, and I'm sending that to the speaker. Now remember, we use the tone command, and I've already defined the speaker pin to be some pin. So tone sends to the speaker this note for this duration. Okay, and the reason I put this if statement in there is that, remember, for the first 10 seconds and only for the first 10 seconds do I want to make any noises. Okay, and so I'm going to be flashing the lights for all 20 seconds, but only if I'm in the first 10 seconds will I sound a tone. Otherwise, I won't send a tone. Okay? Okay? Again, I need to go check to see if somebody pressed the reset button. We're always bothered by that reset button. Well, you can't neglect it. We always have to check it to see if somebody's been pressing it. And so we have to go check that and restart if somebody pressed the button, just like before. Now, we had one light that was on and one light that was off, and now we just flip that. We take light 1 that was high and we turn it off by doing a digital right to light 1 low. Okay? Again, we're going to sound the speaker, but we're going to change it to the 4-octave C. Okay, so it's na 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 na, that kind of tone. Okay, and it's a half a second at each one. Again, I'm only going to make a sound if I'm within the first 10 seconds. Okay, and so because these delays are here, these are going to define the fact that this is 1/2 second here and 1/2 second here. Now, the Arduino is executing all of this code extremely fast, less than a millisecond. So, you know, this delay right here is much, much longer than all of this code combined. So I don't have to worry about the length of time it takes the Arduino to actually execute this stuff. It does take time, but we can neglect it. It's okay. Again, I have to check the reset button. Okay, and so there it goes. It's going to set off the alarm for 20 seconds. That's my loop. And when I'm done setting off the alarm, I just need to restart. I'm just going to restart the system from scratch. Okay. Now here's the close statement for my if motion statement equal to high, motion state equal to high. And then this was the close bracket for my if not armed statement. Remember, we're in the else of that if not armed. So it's kind of a big picture here. There's a lot going on here. I couldn't fit it on one screen. And that's basically it. So I'll come back to the full code here in a moment, but let me talk about the 2 subroutines that we called. Remember, when somebody hit the reset button, it started the restart subroutine. Well, that one's really simple. What it does is it's not going to return anything back to the calling routine. All it's going to do is turn off my status LED, turn off my lights. It's going to send a 100 millisecond bleep to my speaker. It's the 6th octave C, so it's way up there. It's just beep. It's just going to sound very quickly, just so the user knows that they were successful at resetting the system. They hear that beep, they know it worked. Okay? And then this subroutine is going to call yet another subroutine called reset func or reset function. Okay? Now this is a very useful routine right here. Reset func is a subroutine, and this is it. This is all it is. Just one line. Okay? And what this does is this subroutine resets the Arduino as if you hit the reset button on the Arduino. Now remember, when you hit the reset button on the Arduino, it starts over. It starts right at the very top of your code. So effectively what we're doing with this by hitting the reset button, we're calling the reset function that it's kind of cheating. We're restarting all over again from scratch. We're not going back to the top of a loop. It's not a controlled command that goes back to another part of our code. It's as if we unplugged the Arduino and plugged it back in again. And that works just as well. And so that's really handy to have for any kind of routine you might be doing in the future with Arduinos. Okay, so what I want to do now is pull up the code, all the code for the project. Now, you can see here that here's our include. I only did that in the presentation I just gave you. In the first part, I talked about this stuff, but this is the full code. There's our constants with all of our pin assignments. Here's all of our variables with their initial conditions. Here's all of our pin modes, right? We're defining our inputs and outputs for our pins. And I'm turning all of my lights on. I'm turning all of my lights off. Now, the only difference here for this is that I'm using relays in this particular application, and in the relays, it's called active low, and so whenever they're high, they're off. So don't let that confuse you. But what we're really doing is we're turning off the lights to start with. Okay, now I put my subroutine, my reset function, up here, it doesn't really matter. You can usually put it at the bottom. Okay. Matter of fact, if I do that, it's not going to change anything. I can just put it down here at the bottom, and that's fine. So if you want to put all your subroutines down at the bottom, that's okay too. Now here's our main loop, and this is all the code we went through. This is everything. It's just all pieced together. And in this way, you can see everything working as one full completed puzzle. Okay. And so here's our loop. We're checking to see if the system is not armed. If it's not armed, then you arm the system. If it is armed, then go check the motion sensor. If the motion sensor doesn't sense anything, then loop all the way back up to the beginning. Remember, if the motion sensor is active, that means it's armed, so it skips over all this stuff and it checks the motion sensor again. And if the motion sensor detects anything, we flash the LED really quickly, and then if nobody hits the reset, we set off the alarm. And there's our 2 subroutines. Okay? So hopefully this helped, and if you have any questions, certainly we can talk about it in our sessions in the future. So good luck with this. I'll see you later.